Hello everyone, my name is Michael. It is my pleasure to start this journey on this YouTube channel where I will be teaching project management. I will be discussing anything project management on this channel. So I will love you to be part of this journey. And on this channel, we'll be looking at the project management from two ways. We'll be looking at project management from the waterfall perspective, and also we'll be looking at project management from an agile perspective. In project management, we have two techniques that we use in order to manage a project. We use the waterfall and we use the agile, and also we have the hybrid where we combine the two methodology together. So what do I mean by waterfall? Waterfall is a linear form of managing a project where we have to pass through different phases in order to complete the entire project. So we have the initiation stage, the planning stage, the execution stage, the monitoring and control, and the closing phase. So all through this phase, we have to pass through this in order to complete the project. So it is a linear way of managing a project, or let me say it's a conventional way of managing a project. And remember, at each of the phase we have to get approval before we move to. So it involves a lot of planning and a lot of documentation. And also when we talk of the agile is a form of way of managing project that we have to use sprint. It is a form of project that allows to incorporate stakeholder involvement or feedback into our project. And also in agile we use, or let me say, agile is just like an umbrella. We have many techniques under agile, but in most companies they use Scrum, or most organizations they focus on Scrum framework. So what do I mean by Scrum framework? Scrum framework is a situation whereby we have a very big picture of a big project, and we understand the scope, and we're able to divide the scope into smaller phases. We divide the scope into, after we have passed through the identify of high-level projects requirements, or when we pass through the detailed business requirements. So from there we'll be able to put those projects into team, and from team we get to the epic, from epic we get to user stories, and we have to now start working on that project sprint by sprint, and each sprint we expect to produce a product. So it is a good method of managing project that allows us to incorporate the feedback from the customer, and also for us to include the customer all through the entire process. So the stakeholder, other end user, or they will be included all through the entire process when using agile. So it's a very good methodology. So on this channel we'll be looking at these two that I've mentioned on this channel. So today I would like us to dive into what are the commonly used project management techniques. I will be able to explain one after the other before we start looking at diverse areas of project management. Remember that project management is a voluminous topic. It's a very voluminous topic, but we'll be taking it one after the other. So before we move into looking at by project management foundation, looking at this diverse areas of project management, moving into the agile, today on this channel I just want to discuss what are the commonly used project management techniques. So this is what we'll be looking at on this channel today. So once again, my name is Michael. I'm a project management professional. I'm also a part-time professor at a college in Ontario, and also I've been able to develop an agile project management curriculum for a unit in a college. So I would love you to subscribe to this channel, like and comment. I would like to read from you. I believe that communication is done in two ways. When I teach, I want you to gain something. So let's communicate, let's explore, let's go together, let's learn together. So thank you so much. Without any delay, let's start explaining the commonly used project management. I'll be using slides, and sometimes on this channel I'll be sharing my personal experiences, and also I'll be sharing my using case study to illustrate the theoretical background behind the project management. So thank you so much, and bye. See you on the other side. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me on this channel today. On this channel we'll be looking at the project management techniques that we have. In project management, or for us to manage a project, as a project team, we have to use a specific project management approach. So in order for us to complete our project. So today we'll just be looking at those project management techniques that we have. I always say that we in project management, the most commonly used, those commonly used project management techniques, they are three. We have the Waterfall, we have the Agile, and we have the hybrid approach. So these are the three most commonly used project management techniques. So as a project management team or as a project manager, in order to manage the project, we have to select one of the techniques in order to manage our project. So each of these techniques have their own specific method of managing a project. They have some certain process they have to follow in order to complete the project. So they are not the same, they are different from each other. So let's just have a look at those three most commonly used project management techniques that we have. Like I said, we have the Waterfall, we have the Agile, and we have the hybrid approach. So I will explain this one after the other just to give us an overview of each of these project management approach. So first, let's look at the Waterfall project management approach, or let's say Waterfall project management techniques, or Waterfall project management methodology. So let's look at this. The Waterfall project management approach entails a clear defined sequence of execution with project phases that do not advance until a phase receives final approval. And once a phase is completed, it can be difficult and costly to revisit a previous stage. It is also called, or is also referred to as predictive driven or a plan driven methodology. So in this video, in this video, I will explain what we mean by Waterfall project management technique. So first, let's look at why do we call it predictive driven, or why do we call it plan driven methodology. In order for us to complete a Waterfall project, we have 5 phases that we have to follow, or we have to pass through before we complete the entire project using Waterfall. So we have the initiation stage, we have the planning stage, we have the execution stage, we have the monitoring and controlling phase, and the closing phase. So we call this project management process group. Project management process group. We also have project management life cycle, but I'm not going into that now. I'll just focus on the Waterfall project management techniques, and at the same time, the project management process group that we have to follow in order to complete the project. So we call it predictive driven because we have good understanding of those phases that we have to follow in order to complete a Waterfall project, and at the same time we have knowledge of what the outcome of our project will look like. For instance, let's say we want to develop an application, web application or mobile application that the customer can use in order to order a grocery, to order their grocery from a grocery store. So we have good understanding of what the outcome of this app will be. We know the features that we have to put in order to develop the entire app, and we know the objectives of the app. We know what the app will do for the customer. So in this case, we can say we have the ability to predict the outcome of our project. So in Waterfall, when we start the initiation stage, sometimes we just have some basic understanding or high level knowledge of the project. But by the time we start the planning phase, we are expected to have know much of what we want to develop at the planning phase before we start the execution phase. So that is why we call it predictive, because by this end of planning, we have good understanding of what the application will look like. Let's say we want to use this methodology for a construction company or a construction project. You want to build a house. The architect, the planner, the building planner or the developer, the people that will be working on this project, they have understanding of what the outcome of the house will look like, what it will look like on the back side, on the front side, and inside the house. How many rooms, how many bathrooms. So we call it predictive because we can't predict. We are able to predict the outcome of our project at the planning phase. So it's not that we want to have we have no knowledge of one part of the features or some of the feature that we want to use, and then we start doing going to the execution phase. It doesn't work like that in Waterfall. Waterfall, at the planning level, we must have knowledge of what we want to complete. So at the beginning, we may have high level knowledge, but by the time we start the planning phase, talking to the stakeholders, we should be able to get good understanding of what the entire project will entail before we now move into the execution, because what we have planned or what we have done during the planning stage is what we are going to execute. So we can't execute what we don't have an understanding of it. So that is how it works in Waterfall project management techniques. And also we call it plan driven because in Waterfall there must be an extensive planning. So we spend a lot of time. We have to use most of our time in the planning phase. For instance, I said we have this process group, 5 process group. We have the initiation phase. During the initiation phase, we have the project charter delivered. We deliver the project charter, and also when we move to the planning, we do a lot of planning. What do we do during the planning phase? Part of the planning phase, we have to come up with a communication strategy, change management strategy or plan. Oh, okay, if there is going to be a change on this project, how do we go about the changes? How do we do the change process? How do we get the approval for that change? We come up with this scope planning. So we must get the scope right. We must get the scope of the entire project, and each of the features, they have their own scope. When we pick a particular or a specific feature, we must know exactly what we want to do with that feature, so we don't exceed the scope of that feature. So we carry out the scope on the planning. So we have scope planning. We also have the risk planning. We also have the stakeholder management plan. We also plan the schedule. And we only get to the schedule when we have good understanding of the entire feature that we want to include in the application. And now we turn this into what is known as work breakdown structure. So we call it WBS. So we have the WBS, and in that WBS we'll be able to further divide or split those activities into more smaller phases. So we now take it into schedule. So we are able to develop our schedule after we have completed our WBS. So WBS gives us some knowledge of what we have to do, and now we have to work with the team and get each phase that we have to complete on each of the features. So we now take all these things into our project schedule. So all these things we do it during the planning phase. Also, if you have to buy anything, you have to procure anything. You have to work with the external vendor, external stakeholders who could be our vendor. We have to do this planning during the planning phase. So there are a lot of things that we do during the planning. So we call it plan driven because we have to spend a lot of time during the planning phase. So, and if you look at it, also at each of the phase, we have to get approval. So when we finish the initiation phase, we get an approval of the project charter, and then we move to the planning phase. During the planning phase, we also come up with what is called project management document. We produce a project management plan document. So once all this, and we also have some sub document, but I will not go into that now. So we have the scope plan document, communication code document, stakeholder plan document, all those documents. And through that document, we're able to come up with the main document called the project management plan. So when we have the project management plan, we get approval from from a project sponsor or project steering committee. So once we get the approval, we'll now be able to move into the execution phase. So at each of the phase in Waterfall, we have to complete the phase, get approval, and move to the next phase. So without getting approval, we can't move to the next phase. Another thing you have to look at when working with in Waterfall, we should make sure that we get everything right. Like the scope, we get it right from the beginning or during the planning phase, so that we not start the project and start getting additional scope. And this will lead to what is called scope creep. Scope creep is a situation where after we have planned our scope, we have gotten the scope right, the stakeholders ask us to add more scope and we start to expand the scope. At this phase, we might need what is called change request. So we have to get a request approved before we can incorporate those change. So in Waterfall, it's so difficult for us to take a change. Not that we can embrace change or we can take change, but it will have to pass through the change management process, through the change control board. So the change control board are the people that will approve or disapprove our change. So in Waterfall, it's always good for us to get it right from the beginning, so that we not have to go through a change request process. So we call it predictive because we can predict the outcome of our project. We call it plan driven because we have to do the planning. Planning is so important in Waterfall. Also in Agile, we do a lot of planning, but we call this one plan driven because there is a phase in that process where we call it planning phase. So in that planning phase, we come together as a project team and do an extensive planning, so that we use what we have planned. We can use it during the execution phase. So let's move into the next one, which is the Agile project management approach. In Agile project management, it's like an umbrella, and under this umbrella, we have different techniques. We have the Lean, we have extreme programming, we have the Scrum framework, and we also have the Kanban and some other techniques. But the commonly used one is called the Scrum framework. So Scrum framework is the commonly used project management technique that we have. So on this channel, we only focus more on the Scrum framework. We can also look at Kanban, but mostly we focus on the Scrum framework. So Agile approach is an intuitive approach to delivering a project, which focuses on continuous releases that incorporate customer feedback, the ability to adjust to each iteration, promote velocity, adaptability. This approach is different from the linear waterfall approach. It is also referred to as adaptive driven or change driven. So what do I mean by adaptive driven? What do I mean by change driven? Remember, in Waterfall, we call Waterfall predictive driven, while we call the Agile adaptive driven. Why do we call it adaptive driven, and why do we call it change driven? I will quickly explain. Like I said, each of these methodology or techniques, project management techniques, they have their own specific approach, their own specific process. So under this Scrum framework, we have some certain event, or let me call ceremony or process. We have the Scrum planning, sprint review, sprint retrospective, and also we have the daily stand-up. So these are the commonly a process that we follow when using Scrum. So that's at the stage of sprint review. The project team, they have completed a specific or some aspect of the project during a sprint. I will explain sprint later. During a sprint, and we now have what is called sprint review. So during the sprint review, we have the stakeholders, the end user, the customer. So we present the product in form of a prototype to these stakeholders. So they look at it. So they will be able to give us some feedback. So we will now adapt this feedback into the rest of the sprint or into the rest of the project. So that is why we call it adaptive driven, because we will allow the stakeholder to be part of the project process all through from the beginning to the end. So at the point when we do the sprint review, we allow them to give us feedback, and we now incorporate the feedback, we adapt the feedback into the rest of the sprint. So what do I mean by sprint? In Scrum, we use sprint. So sprint is the duration or the time frame that the project team of the Scrum team will be able to work on a specific aspect of the project. So it's not depend on the complexity of the project. If the project is very complex, so sometimes we can have 10 sprints, we can have 20 sprints, we can have 30 sprints, depending on the nature and complexity of the project. So the sprint, during the sprint, the team will come together to work on the specific. So let me explain that. In Scrum, we use what is called sprint. So for us to work on during the sprint, for team to work on the sprint, you have this project scope, and for the project scope, we were able to have some teams. From teams, we divide our team into Epic, and from Epic we are able to generate what is called user stories. So the team work on user stories during sprint. So we have this user story, and based on prioritization, we're able to select some user story that the team can complete during a sprint. So at each of the sprint, the project team, they are expected to deliver something. So is this what they deliver that we present to the stakeholders, and we get their feedback, and we adapt those feedback into the rest of the sprint. So that is why we call it adaptive driven. It allows us to involve the stakeholders. When we complete a sprint, we present it to the stakeholder. We get their feedback, and we adapt it into the rest of the project. So we call it change driven. Remember, during the waterfall, I said for us to take any change or accept any change, we have to pass through change management process. That means we have to go through the change control board. Is either they approve our change or they reject it. And how do we do it? We have to create what is called change request form. In the change request form, we put the information there, and we pass this information to the change control board to approve it. But under Agile, we don't have to pass through those processes. Once we have change, we discuss with the team, so we cannot do another planning. When we complete the plan, we decide to adapt it or to take those changes. So we say that when we're working in Scrum, we accept change even at the middle of the sprint or even at the middle of the project. If you accept a change at the middle of the sprint, we don't have to incorporate that change into that sprint. We take the change and we incorporate that change into the next sprint. So it's a kind of project methodology that allows us to adapt feedback, also think change from the stakeholders. We always allow the stakeholder to be part of the entire project. While in Waterfall, we also keep the stakeholder. There is something we call stakeholder mapping. I will not talk about that now. So we keep them informed, we carry them along, but not the same as in Agile. They are part of the project, but in Waterfall, we inform them, we carry them along, we give them project status report. We just need them to know what. So sometimes we will have started the execution before the stakeholder will know that something is not right, or sometimes they will have completed that project and realize that we have done what we have completed is not the right thing. So the essence of Agile, or the essence of Scrum, is that it's better for us as a Scrum team or as a project team to fail earlier. So if we fail earlier, we'll be able to make that correction before we've completed the entire project. So that is why we incorporate feedback, and we ensure that the stakeholders, they are all part of our planning of our project from the beginning to the end. So, and at each of the sprint, we expect the team to deliver a product. We call it MVP, minimum viable product. So something that is working, something that they can check through the prototype, they can now give feedback. So there must always be something that we can produce. So Scrum is mostly used for the IT. Whilst in some non-IT projects, we can also still use Scrum. Even some departments are also making use of Scrum. They embrace Scrum as part of their daily operation. For instance, some team will use daily stand-up for their team. They might not have to do it all the time. They might just have to do it 3 times a week. So some other team also, they are embracing the Scrum framework. They embrace some aspect of the Scrum framework. So it is an approach that allows us to incorporate customer feedback, ensure that at each of the sprints we produce something, and also we embrace change even at the middle of the project. So let's move into the next one, which is the hybrid project management approach. This approach allows us to combine 2 methodologies together. So that's why we call it hybrid approach. We have let me read it again. Let me read it. This is a project management methodology that combines the functionality of Agile and Waterfall. It involves planning the project phases with the Waterfall methodology and executing the project phase sprint with the Agile methodology. So we are using the Agile during the execution phase, while we are using the Waterfall during the planning phase. So in this kind of methodology, we mostly use it for complex projects when working on a complex project. So it's good to have a business PMO and also an IT team or IT PMO. What do I mean by PMO? PMO is the project management office. They manage the project, they coordinate the project, or they direct the project. We have 3 types. We have the supporting PMO, directive PMO, also the direct support, control, and directive PMO. So each of these PMO have their different responsibility and authority. I will not go into that right now, but in using this kind of approach, there will always be a business team and the IT team, and both teams, they are working together in order to ensure that the project is delivered. So the work of the business team will not stop at the planning, and the work of the team, the IT team, will not only focus on the software development. They are both working together, making sure that the objective and the scope are aligned in order to deliver a value, in order to develop a product. So both of them are working together. The planning phase, the business, they have to do that in collaboration with the IT. So they do the planning, the document, everything they have to do on the project. The business analyst will be part of the team, the project planner, the project coordinator. Everybody is working together. While on the other side of the IT, they also have their IT team, IT architecture, quality and so on, data analyst, software developer, front end, back end, all those stuffs. They are working together. Data scientists, data analysts, all are working together on this project. Depending on the type of the project they are working on, we determine on the kind of team that you have to form in the IT team. So both of them are working together in order to achieve the outcome of the project. So in this kind of methodology, the execution we use the Scrum. When we are working on the planning phase, we use the Waterfall approach. So they are working together. I'm currently working with a team where we use hybrid approach. It's a 3 years 5 years project. So we are working together as a team, the IT and the business working together in order to deliver this project. So both the business and the IT, they have work to do, but they are both meeting together every week, communicating together in order to make sure the project they deliver in order to ensure that they deliver the project. So lastly, how do we determine the project management methodology that we should use? Now we have the project charter. There is a project charter with us, which is the project charter will give us some high level background about the entire project. So as a project manager, you have the project charter or you have your project information in front of you, and you have to determine what type of project methodology we should use, or what is the approach we should take, or the techniques we should embrace from the three most commonly used project management techniques that we have. We have the Waterfall, we have the Agile, we have the hybrid. So the answer is the project management methodology are defined by nature of the project. So the nature of the project will allow us to determine what kind of methodology we should use. Should we use Agile? Should we use Waterfall? Should we use hybrid? So the nature of the project helps us to determine this. So in most cases, we look at the project. Is it a simple project? Is it a complex project? Is it more of IT? Is it a construction project? Is it a technology project? So we look at that. What kind of project is this? And by then, and based on the team that we have on ground, we'll be able to determine the project technique that we want to use or that we should use. So this is how it works. And who will help us to make this decision? Project team can decide on their own based on their experience in the past working on different projects. Also, we can use a subject matter expert. We call them SME, subject matter expert. These are the people that have done, okay, we want to work on a cloud project, and we have somebody, an expert, that he has worked on diverse cloud projects. It could be of help to us instead of us starting to do the entire work from the beginning. It will just give us some insight in order to what we should do. So this subject matter expert can help us to determine the project methodology that we should embrace or that we should use. Another thing, sometimes the project steering committee or the project sponsor, if that project sponsor or steering committee, they have worked on diverse projects in the past, or they are, let's say in the past, they were the manager for PMO office, and they have handled a lot of projects, and they have sound knowledge of those methodology. They can also assist or tell the team the project technique they can use. But above all, the project team have the final say on what kind of techniques they want to use, irrespective of people that assist them to determine. Also, in some organization have a project management governance. They have process, they have steps they have to follow. So in kind of organization, it's easy for the project team to plug in their project into the information they have on the project's governance. What I mean, so they will have certain project type, and they will have this. If you are working on this project with this cost, with this kind of technology, we should use Waterfall. If we are working on this kind of project with this kind of cost, we should be able to use these techniques, maybe Agile. If you are working on this, so they have some set of plan or governance that they use to guide their project management team or their project management office in order to manage projects. So it's easy for project team to look into this project governance and be able to plug in their project into any of this. Oh, this project should be able to fall into Waterfall or Agile or Hybrid. So we can also use the project management governance if it's available in our organization. So this is the end of this discussion on the most commonly used project management. Thank you so much for being part of this teaching today, for being part of this teaching. I believe that I've been able to impart you with knowledge of project management. First, because I said we should first look at the commonly used project management technique that we have before we move into diverse areas of project management. So I believe that you've gained something out of my explanation today on the overview of Waterfall, overview of the Agile and the Hybrid approach, and also where we also discuss how do we determine the project management technique that we should use. Or we determine this by the nature of the project, and also we also look into how do we determine this? Who should determine this for us as a project team? Or how should we go about making that conclusion that this is the project technique that we want to use on this on each of the project or on a specific project that we want to work on? So it is always within the team. And so in my next video, we'll be looking at the project management overview. I'll be discussing project management overview from a PMI perspective. So we'll be looking at this. What do I mean by PMI? Project Management Institute. They're the one that they are in charge of coordinating project management affairs in this part of the world, in North America especially. So we will be looking at their perspective, their overview, their view of project management. What is the definition? And from the definition, we'll be able to bring out the key points about project management. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So kindly subscribe, kindly like, and kindly comment till I see you in my next video. Bye.